So when I look at where my OEM forecast is right now, this same chart, I just update it. And when I was looking at it, of course, and I haven't taken the full extent of the Boeing strike into consideration here. So if we look here at the Boeing packs and Airbus packs and the factory freighters, which are the bars, and then you'll see the typical thing that I've been putting in for a few years now, which are the bars there for the aircraft that have not been built, assuming that growth levels of output are continued. That we had seen a steady recovery up to 2023, and actually very encouraging. And when I was looking at the increments going up towards, say, 2027, which was where my view was, that I was never going to increase any more than any period greater than history. So when I was seeing some of the output expectations that were coming from Airbus, I was tempering that somewhat. And whilst Boeing have been quite conservative, obviously for obvious reasons. But since the door on the Alaskan aircraft situation earlier in the year, the beginning of the year, of course, we've had a full slowdown in terms of MAX deliveries, whilst Airbus have been continuing to pump aircraft out at a steady rate for much of the year. Now, we have seen a little bit of a slowdown over the last couple of months as we've seen some of the issues filtering through. And then, of course, we've got, is there a steady supply of engines coming through the situation? But once you look at it, and this is without putting the full extent of the strike into the situation, we are at a point now where the combined Airbus and passenger fleet growth is lower than last year, which is not a very good situation whatsoever. If we then consider that there's going to be some element of the MAX delivery chain that's going to be impacted heavily by the strike, then, of course, that blue bar, that dashed blue bar, is going to start to pull back a little bit. But I must must stress that, there is still an element of that strike bar has already delivered. And then it's really only just the last 100 or so aircraft that really is the bit that's kind of questionable in there. So really, when you're looking at it, it's not major, but it's still significant. But what it also means that realistically, with the growth levels that go on from that, we're not really going to be getting over 2018 until beyond 2026. And then where we are going to get to the point where we get to our growth levels, not even beyond 2028. So you are looking much more and more towards the end of the decade. Just for your information, this is my January view versus the September view. So this is exactly what I presented in the market update at the beginning of January. When you look at there, you can see that there's some that have really not moved that a lot. There has been some A320 slippage, and I made that change probably about 3 months ago, just before Airbus announced that they were going to slip a little bit in terms of what they were looking at. I've got a few wide body shifts in there as well. But obviously, where the major change there is when you're looking at 73 going from 480 to 328, and that's going to start moving further and further down. But also, similarly, when you look at, say, the 777 freighter deliveries, they are lower than expected. And similarly for the 787, that's quite a big drop compared to where the expectation was at the beginning of the year. When you see how that moves on to the beginning of the financing market, and when you consider how many new aircraft are financed through sale-leaseback as opposed to simply through cash and debt, then, which is well over the sort of, around the sort of 30 to 40% mark, you can see how that recovery is mirroring quite nicely. And you look at the way that the bars, or the purple bars, have moved quite well with how production flows. So this is for sale-leasebacks of aircraft that are less than a year old, so synonymous with a new purchase leaseback at the start of its life. Other points in there just to mention, of course, is when you see the red and the blue bars and the grey bars, there's, of course, that's dealing with older aircraft, sale-leasebacks, and generally that happens when there is a period of volatility and the market sound cycles moving downwards, and airlines are unable to meet their cash requirements. And so you start seeing more airlines selling aircraft in there. We're not really in that realm. We are in the point of view now, just the airlines have got what they have their cash levels and working towards it. And at the moment, it's really the sale-leasebacks of those aircraft coming into the system.